Way back in August of 2009, that was during President Obama's first year in office. In that summer, a brand new political season was born. That long, hot summer in 2009 was, as you may recall, the dawn of the shouty town hall political season, when question and answer sessions with your local congressman turned into something like this.
I'm afraid of Obama.
Why are you afraid? He's a good suggestion up here. The suggestion to Roger Lynn Beck. Here's what I'd suggest. Turn that television off when he comes up.
That was six-term Republican Congressman Bob Inglis from South Carolina. And for saying that, Bob Inglis had to go. Aside from telling his constituents to turn off Glenn Beck, Inglis was also a climate change realist, and he often said so out loud. He also invited Tea Party ire when he voted for the TARP Wall Street bailout back in 2008. And so for those and other various crimes in 2010, Bob Inglis got utterly destroyed by the Tea Party favorite in South Carolina's Republican primary runoff. He lost by an almost unimaginable margin of 42 points, one of the biggest drubbings ever for any incumbent member of Congress. Inglis got blown out of the water by this guy. His name is Trey Goudy, former prosecutor and now a second-term congressman from South Carolina. And today, Trey Goudy just became one of the most important people in the Republican Party because he just got handed the newly formed Select Committee to investigate the State Department's handling of the attacks against our diplomatic outposts in Benghazi, Libya. Today, House Speaker John Boehner picked Goudy for this very special GOP honor of heading up a Select Committee. And remember, a Select Committee is not just any old committee. The Select Committee is reserved for high-level scandals. It was a Select Committee that was used for Watergate and for Iran-Contra, and now for Benghazi. And Republicans are giving Congressman Goudy the golden pitchfork on this one, in part because since taking office, he's been on the leading edge of Republican conspiracy theory investigations. He's been a bulldog presence at all of the House Oversight Committee sessions. He's been hitting on all of the conservative causes.
Fast and Furious was fundamentally flawed in its conception, flawed in its execution, and flawed in its explanation afterward.
Mr. Chairman, I counted 17 separate factual assertions by Ms. Lerner, not those three little sentences that my colleagues like to cite, 17 separate factual assertions.
We're going to find out what happened in Benghazi, and I don't give a damn whose career is impacted. We're going to find out what happened.
And they have been finding out what happened for going on 2 years now, with 8 congressional committees in both houses spanning 13 hearings, and now a Select Committee, which congressional Republicans are hoping will really find out, this time really for real, what really did happen in Benghazi. What this whole thing is really about is up next.
The public hearings that get so much attention are the last things that should happen. We need former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton up giving hours and hours of depositions before they put her back out in public testimony. That's the way to find out what happened.
And that was John Bolton, the former Bush administration UN ambassador, demanding what many on the right are also demanding: more scrutiny of Hillary Clinton's role in Benghazi. And in a way, it's easy to understand why. Hillary Clinton is the overwhelming favorite to win the Democratic nomination in 2016. And at least at this far-out point, she runs comfortably ahead of every prospective Republican opponent. So the politics are obvious. Republicans need to bring down Hillary's poll numbers, and here's a vehicle to try to do that. But what's so interesting about watching this all play out right now, about watching Republicans convene a special Benghazi committee and ratchet up their rhetoric and try to connect Hillary to all of it, what's so interesting about that is that what Republicans are really trying to do here is to undo a huge political mistake they made a few years ago. A political mistake that has been instrumental in turning Hillary into the overwhelming 2016 favorite that she is right now. And to really fully appreciate this story, you probably need to go back to 1992, back to when Bill and Hillary were brand new to the national stage. Bill was running for president that year, so it was no surprise that Republicans unleashed a hard-hitting and at times very personal assault against him. That's politics. But what was different about 1992 was that the right also gave that same treatment to Hillary to the wife of the Democratic nominee. They thought she was a fair target because she was promising to play an active policy role in her husband's administration. You get two for the price of one. That's what Bill famously said during that campaign. And so the right savaged Hillary as a radical left-wing feminist. That year's Republican convention was littered with attacks on her. If you want a taste, here it is. This was Pat Buchanan speaking in prime time at that convention.
Elect me, and you get two for the price of one, Mr. Clinton says of his lawyer spouse. And what? And what does Hillary believe? Well, Hillary believes that 12-year-olds should have the right to sue their parents. And Hillary has compared marriage and the family as institutions to slavery and life on an Indian reservation. Well, speak for yourself, Hillary.
That's how the right talked about Hillary Clinton back then. And that's pretty much how the right talked about her throughout the entire 2 terms of the Clinton presidency. She and her husband more or less got the same type of treatment from the right. They were the 2 leading faces of the enemy party, and so they were to be attacked and opposed at every turn. And actually, it kept right on going even when Bill Clinton's presidency ended. It's because Hillary had won a Senate seat and Republicans knew that what we all knew. She was probably going to run for president someday. That the prospect of a Clinton restoration was very real. And that the Clintons were still, even after leaving the White House, they were still the face of the National Democratic Party. And so, for instance, in the wake of 9/11, the right strained to place the blame on Bill Clinton. Remember when he got into an argument with a Fox News host over that? Take a look.
Why didn't you do more to put bin Laden and al-Qaeda out of business when you were president?
And I think it's very interesting that all the conservative Republicans who now say I didn't do enough claimed that I was too obsessed with bin Laden. All of President Bush's neocons thought I was too obsessed with bin Laden. They had no meetings on bin Laden for 9 months after I left office. All the right-wingers who now say I didn't do enough said I did too much. Same people. I authorized the CIA to get groups together to try to kill him. The CIA was run by George Tenet that President Bush gave the Medal of Freedom to. He said he did a good job setting up all these counterterrorism things. The country never had a comprehensive anti-terror operation until I came there.
Do you think you did enough, sir?
No, because I didn't get him.
Right.
But at least I tried. That's the difference in me and some, including all the right-wingers that are attacking me now. They ridicule me for trying. They had 8 months to try. They did not try. I tried.
That was back in the fall of 2006. That was back when Hillary was just getting ready to launch her presidential campaign. That was when Barack Obama was still just a second-year senator, when all the chatter was just starting to pick up that he might run in 2008 as well. Back then, everyone figured that if Obama did run, he wouldn't stand a chance against Hillary. It had been almost 15 years by then that the Clintons had been on the national stage. And for all of that time, they had been the enemies in chief of the Republican Party. And then this happened.
It is now 9 p.m. in the East, and Barack Obama is projected to win a substantial victory in North Carolina over Hillary Clinton.
And now this is the point, this is the moment that Republicans made that mistake that they're now regretting, that they're now trying to erase. Because it was in the spring of 2008 when it became clear that everyone had been wrong. It became clear that Obama was actually going to win the Democratic nomination, that there wasn't going to be a Clinton restoration after all. It's when Barack Obama suddenly supplanted the Clintons as the face of the National Democratic Party. It was at this moment that Republicans suddenly, after 15 years of nonstop attacks, that they suddenly let up on the Clintons. And actually, it's more than that. They didn't just let up on the Clintons. They started to lionize the Clintons. They drew up a new Clinton caricature. No longer were they a pair of radical, amoral ideologues. Suddenly, with Barack Obama their new enemy in chief, Republicans began talking about the Clintons wistfully. This from the New York Times in 2010 under the headline, "Some in GOP find soft spot for Bill Clinton." Quoting, Senator Orrin Hatch will go down in history as a better president than the sitting one. Sean Hannity of Fox News, who has verbally abused Mr. Clinton for years, recently referred to him as good old Bill. Republicans in Congress have begun speaking of him with respect, even pining. When Barack Obama became president instead of Hillary Clinton, the right tried to rewrite its own history. Forgot all about Monica Lewinsky and impeachment and that old caricature it had of Hillary. And praising the Clintons became a way of attacking Barack Obama, holding up Bill and Hillary as examples, as shining examples, really, of practical, cooperative, bipartisan Democrats. Examples that, in their telling, the current president fell far short of. And here's what that strategy did. That, what you're looking at right there, that is the trend line of Hillary Clinton's favorable rating. And if you look closely, you can pinpoint the exact moment that all of this started happening, when the right's attacks on the Clintons stopped and the praise began. Right there in the spring of 2008, her popularity skyrockets and it reaches levels she had never before seen. Right has spent a lot of the Obama presidency talking up the Clintons as a way of trying to take down Obama. And now they're facing the consequences. Hillary Clinton's image was battered and bruised at the end of the 2008 primaries. But Republicans have been instrumental in building her back up, and then some. And now, as that special Benghazi committee comes together, we're watching them scramble desperately to try to undo everything they've done for her these past 6 years. Joining us now is Republican strategist and MSNBC contributor Steve Schmidt. And Steve, I grew up, sort of came of age following politics in the 1990s. So I just have these memories sort of tattooed on my brain of the Republicans just relentlessly going after the Clintons. Then when I've listened to how Bill Clinton has been talked about by so many Republicans the last few years, and Hillary Clinton for that matter, especially when she was at the State Department, and I look at what's happening now, Benghazi investigation being an example of it, I kind of think to myself, Republicans are sort of waking up at this moment saying, gee, maybe we shouldn't have been talking them up this much.
Well, look, Steve, Hillary Clinton, President Clinton have been on the national stage for a long time now. And we have a tendency in this country that when a former president leaves office, battered and bruised, over time their image is rehabilitated. President Clinton is someone obviously with considerable charm. And I think that when people look back on that era in American history, the 1990s, it was a time of peace and prosperity. There were some big bipartisan deals that got done. And I think people look back on that with a lot of nostalgia after the last, since the terrorist attacks on September 11th, the two wars, the economic crisis, the collapse, the partisanship and dysfunction in Washington. I think people look back on that era with a lot of nostalgia, and the result of it has been that Hillary Clinton and President Clinton are the most ecumenical political figures, most popular political figures in the country, and that makes 2016 a daunting task for any Republican nominee.
Yeah, I mean, when I hear about Republicans sort of looking back, and it's people in general looking back wistfully on the 90s and the bipartisanship, I remember they did impeach him in 1998, so it wasn't this necessarily a great time of tranquility in the Capitol. But I wonder when I look at the Benghazi Select Committee and I see sort of the rhetoric towards Hillary especially changing on the right, it kind of makes me, I'm trying to think what the psychology is in the Republican Party right now. They know she's the clear favorite for 2016. We don't know if she's going to run. Everybody kind of assumes she does. But is there thinking in the Republican Party that they can attack her so much right now that they could maybe keep her out of this race? Is that like sort of
no?
A live option?
I don't think that anyone in the Republican Party believes that any action taken or not taken by a congressional committee is going to impact her decision whether she wants to run or not. I mean, look, the danger for Republicans here, and this is true of all oversight or investigative committees, is there's a thin line between select committee and kangaroo court. And the reality is that it's usually the overreach that results from investigations like this that hurts the people doing the investigating, not the people who are being investigated. So the Republicans have a thin line to walk here. And the most important thing is when you're thinking about a presidential campaign, elections are always about the future. They're not about the past. And I do think there are some legitimate questions that have to be answered with regard to Benghazi. But saying that, is that, you know, the Clintons have been beneficiaries of a lot of Republican excess over the last 2 decades, and I would be worried as this committee gets rolling that it becomes something that more resembles what went on in the late 1990s, which did not help Republicans in that 98 midterm election, for example.
Well, I think I'm just sort of waiting for the moment, maybe if this all comes full circle, maybe 3 or 4 years from now, if Hillary Clinton actually becomes president and the right's attacking her full time, and then we start hearing the narrative of, well, you know what, we never knew how good we had under Barack Obama. I'm kind of wondering if we'll come to that point or not. But anyway, Steve Schmidt, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate the time. Big day for New Jersey tomorrow in the investigation of the George Washington Bridge lane closings. We have got a preview of that next.